Welcome to part 1 of my catch-up wrap-up. All of the things I didn't read for my Hugo and Nebula Award winners project in the last part of 2016 and the first week of 2017. Turns out I haven't talked about most of my reading from the past month, so I have many things to cover. The 12 or so books that I read in December for my award winners project will be in the usual December wrap-up. Finally done! And the various 13 or so other things that I read, most of them in 2017, are going to be in this two-part wrap-up. In December, I reread Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. This is one of the Discworld novels, and it is all about the Hogfather, Hogswatch Knight, and Death pretending to be what is basically Discworld's version of Santa Claus. The plot of Hogfather is that the auditors, which are these mysterious beings that literally audit the world and want everything to be rational and logical and not messy, decide that human belief in various things like the Soul Cake Duck, the Hogfather, Death, is just too messy. This doesn't fit with how they want the world to be, so they ask the Assassin's Guild in Ankh-Morpork to kill the Hogfather. Yes, they want to kill Santa Claus. They hope that by doing this they will start undermining human belief and just topple everything. However, Death gets wind of what's happening and he starts impersonating the Hogfather in order to bolster belief, and then he gets his granddaughter Susan involved to investigate where he cannot go. I loved it, pure and simple. Then I read a graphic novel, Something New, Tales from a Makeshift Bride by Knisley. I'd previously read Relish, which was about cuisine and her life and food and such. And this is the only other graphic novel by her that my library had, and I just really wanted to read more of her work. I love her illustration style. It's simple and cute, but not like twee, just easy to follow, lovely to read. Now, Something New is about preparing for a wedding. Knisley rather abruptly became engaged and had a year to prepare, and I think she wrote the graphic novel while doing a lot of this stuff, so it was very immediate. As you might be able to tell, preparing for weddings has never been on my mind and never thought I would be interested in it. However, I actually ended up enjoying this quite a bit, mainly because it was all about the realities of what the media and people think you should do for your weddings and kind of reacting to that and then taking a more DIY approach. I honestly don't think I understand why people get so wrapped up about weddings, but then again, I come from a family that hasn't made that much of a to-do about it. Also, I'm pretty sure there's only been one wedding in my family in like the last 20 years or something. So I don't have much experience with this. Even just attending weddings, I've done it so infrequently that I don't really know what they're like. At the end of the day, this was cute, fun, and rather informative. And then we come to the last 3 books of 2016 that I read on the last 3 days of the year, because I went on this binge while trying to avoid reading Citeen, which I still haven't finished. So next is Fox Gambit by Yoon Lee. I have been looking forward to reading this book for most of the year. I have read Yoon Lee's short fiction, not all of it, but enough to know that I like his style, and the fact that he seems to include a lot of math and strange things, but I really get into it. This is a type of like hard science fiction that almost borders on magic because it's so out there, and it is based on math and calendars. It's awesome. I do not think I understand how it works, but it was so cool to read. I'm not sure I can do this book justice with a review just off the top of my head because I haven't prepared. I never really prepare for weekly wrap-ups, to be honest. You can probably tell. So, I don't know. I know that Katie from Katie Loves to Read has done a review of this that I thought was really great and pretty much said succinctly what my feelings were upon reading this. It is complicated, and it believes that the reader is smart enough and will take the time to figure it out without being spoon-fed all the answers. And that is an experience I love. I never realize how much I appreciate it when the author treats the reader like a really intelligent person until I read a book where they don't. But this was just excellent. The main character, Cheris, is a captain of the Hex Arcade, and she is disgraced after using unconventional or heretical tactics in a battle. However, she has great mathematical ability, so she is kind of maneuvered into a position where she suggests that they bring back this dead commander guy to help them fight another battle because a fortress has been taken over by a heretical faction that wants to like overthrow the Hexarchate and introduce a new calendar, and it's crazy weird. But she ends up with a pseudo dead guy in her head attached to her, and they together are going to come up with a strategy to penetrate the fortress and save it and everything. But this guy in her head, well, he went crazy. He'd never lost a battle, but then all of a sudden he killed all of his own people. 1 million people died. So for so much of this book, I was thinking, is he really crazy? Is he going to make her crazy? It seems like they're getting along and that she can trust him, but really, when is he going to betray her? Or maybe she has her own agenda. I don't know. And I love it when a story makes me guess all the time. Reading this reminded me so strongly of reading Ancillary Justice for the first time, and I love the Imperial Raj series, and I think there's some really positive similarities between them. The writing style is completely different, and I think the Imperial Raj series has more of a bleak tone, whereas this is just everything is ethically, morally gray or wrong, but not bleak feeling to me. But also, there are some social and cultural things that I thought had some similarities. The bit about people wearing gloves and they won't show their hands to each other was one of them that struck me. But also, this does some interesting things with gender. Highly recommended, and I cannot wait for the sequel. After Atlas by Emma Newman. This is a follow-up to Planetfall, though it is not a sequel, it's just set in the same universe. I read this on the penultimate day of the year and it immediately rocketed onto my favorite books of the year list. And I have already filmed a separate video reviewing this, so I will just put off talking about it until that. I loved it. Everything about it. And the last book that I read in 2016 was A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, the second book in the Wayfarer series, which started with A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I have some slightly meh feelings about this book. I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah, it was really enjoyable and really sweet and lovely to read, but it didn't have that overwhelming oomph to it that The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet had. It has so many things in common with that book, and in some ways I like the plot structure better, but it didn't hit me so much. This book has two intertwining stories about the two main characters. I don't want to say too much about one of those characters because it could be a spoiler for the end of the first book, so let me say that it's about Pepper and her childhood, where she came from, and Cedra, who is an artificial intelligence inside of a body kit, and her struggle to figure out her identity in this big gap between how she sees herself, what she is, and the body she is in that she did not choose. I enjoyed both of these stories separately, though I found myself getting a little tired with Cedra's story, probably because Pepper/Jane's storyline was more up my alley. It's a story of survival where she literally has to get off a planet or die, and there's a lot of like technical engineering ability that goes into that, and I like reading about that kind of thing, people building something for a purpose. So switching back and forth between these two storylines, I felt like I was constantly being yanked away from one that I was enjoying more than the other, but I think my main rather odd complaint about this book is that the chapters were too short. Just about the time I would get into the feel of one of the storylines, I would get thrown over to the other one. It continues those ideas of, love and tolerance and kind of found family vibes that I do really enjoy, that I really loved in the first book. But it is a different type of story. this book made me very happy on the last day of a pretty terrible year. Those are the remaining books I read in 2016, and part 2 of this wrap up will be about the books I read in the first week of 2017. So I will see you in that video, and until then, bye.